Hi, and welcome to episode number 62 of Dreamers and Doers, where I interview people who follow their passion and use it to make the world better. And I think that's you, Bobby. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Alex, for having me here, my brother.
So, just to give a bit of background, I didn't really hear about numerology until maybe a few months ago. And I joined a Freedom Collective where we help people start online businesses and build their life of freedom. And everyone in that collective almost so recommended that I do a session with you, which I absolutely loved. So that's the background. Then, as usual, I like to ask my guest what's their story like, especially how did you get into numerology?
Well, it's really crazy story how I got into numerology. Actually, I became an entrepreneur first, and just to give you guys a little bit of a background, I tried to make it work in the official employment, get a career, and my advice that I was given was to find a big company and to work myself up the ladder, and I was doing so. But I kept on getting fired. I was unreliable. I was the type of person who I was insubordinate, or I got into a fight with my managers, or I just wasn't able to find stability no matter how hard I tried. I just couldn't find it. And there was something missing about it. I was giving people my best, but then it wasn't good enough. Or I was giving other people the part of me that I wasn't giving to myself. And, it turned into this really powerful journey because back in about 2014, I was introduced to this online, or not, it wasn't even online. It was just basically to becoming an entrepreneur and, building a business and selling things to people. And it was a very network marketing type of thing. And I failed at it. I was not good at it. I basically was just doing everything wrong, right? I felt like the world owed me something. And I had a really negative attitude about being in business because I was that kind of skeptical kind of guy that thought if you want to make money, you got to work hard. If you want to do something or get something worthwhile, you have to do it yourself. And so I felt like I had these big mindset blocks around me. And about 7 or 8 months into my business or my entrepreneur journey, my friend says to me, "Hey, you got to check out this numerology stuff. It's really cool. This person finds wealth vibration." I'm like, what the hell does that even mean? I'm a spiritual guy, but I'm like, wealth vibration. Okay. I knew what numerology was. I knew my life path number. I knew what numbers meant. But I didn't know that you could actually change your vibration if you wanted to. I mean, people always say that, raise your vibration, but I didn't understand what it meant to have a numerological vibration and see what that actually meant. So it was about, as I say, within the first year that I found this technology, it blew me away. And I call it a technology nowadays because it's better. It's real. It's not like astrology astrology is real. I love astrology, but you never know what you're going to get with this type of spiritual work when someone says, "Oh, I'm going to do something esoteric in front of you, and then you're going to become wealthy as a result of it." I had no idea. And I was like, I'm going to try anything because I couldn't hold a relationship. I had a really negative addiction to a bunch of different drugs, and I was unable to hold a job. I was living at home. I was like almost 30, and like my life was just crumbling apart. And I'm thinking, and next thing you know, I joined this business and it wasn't working either. So I'm just like, you know what? I'll try anything. I'll do whatever it takes. I listened to my mentor. He got me into business. He got me into numerology. So then I started to learn about it. As they say, it blew my mind. This person was telling me things about myself that I hadn't told anyone. I had never even told myself. These were things that were like the way that I act in stress, or the way that I talk to myself, or the challenges that I've gone through that I've been too embarrassed to tell people about. My numerology reading was explaining all of it to me as if it already knew me. And it took me on a very impressive path of learning how to read this language, but more importantly, learn how to write in it. And I've become very fluent in helping people find the wealth vibration. It's a weird thing to say because it's like, what is that? Again, how do you find a vibration that speaks of wealth? And I guess we can talk about this today, but this is how I sort of got into the whole numerology conversation in the first place.
And we'll talk about this because I was very impressed with the session we've had together. And by the way, if some people wonder why letter E popped up in the middle of my name, we'll tell you about that. But before we dive into this. What's numerology? How would you explain it to people?
Uh, it's I would explain it as it is the labeling and the defining of the vibrations that or the values that show up inside of the numbers in your life. So we take the nine numbers that there are, like or 10 if you count zero, one to nine, 0 to 9, and we assign a value or a definition. Like one would be leadership, and two would be partnership, and three would be creativity, four would be logic, five would be adventure. So we go through the set and we start adding a list of ideas and personality characteristics to this number. And so when we measure your vibration, we look at your birthday, your birth month, your birth year, all of them combined together. We look at your name, Alex, Alexandra, Lambert, right? We look at all of them and we start to pick out, oh, these are the numbers that are showing up. These are the numbers that are occurring. And instead of looking at them from the numbers, we look at it more like, oh, here's the partnership, here's the leadership, here's the creativity, here's the adventure, and here's where it shows up inside of your chart. So we do this story justice by basically explaining how these characters or these values, these personality types starts to show up inside of the way that the song of your life has played out. So for me, I struggle with this because I'm a skeptical kind of guy, like straight up, like numbers got me. And I'm like, well, you can't, deny the math. There's math here. But the reality is that we're now taking it into a very poetic stage by talking about personality types and character and destiny and fate. But the response is overwhelming. People get this energy from it that they're like, it stuns us. And even when you're like, man, this is super impressive. How do you know all this stuff? And then I'm like, I don't know. I've never met you before. I'm just reading your chart. It's your chart that knows you. And it's funny because everything is measured in vibration. And, Nikola Tesla will say that. And Albert Einstein says things like this as well. And if you want to understand the nature of the universe, you have to understand the nature of vibration. And even when it comes into terms now like law of attraction or, law of intention, they all hold a value. And we take this away from spirituality, and I put it more into like electromagnetism. And you are an electrical being, and sometimes you're magnetizing on a negative thought and having a bad day, and you're just like in the slumps and your physiology is down, and someone comes up to you and they're like, oh, are you okay? And you're like, oh, leave me alone. And then they're upset too, and then suddenly it rubbed off on someone, or someone cuts you off on the street and you're driving, and then everyone's in an aggression. You could have hit me, and oh my gosh. And it like energy, it flows where you put your attention. So, we have a choice to vibrate higher, which is easier said than done, or to do the comfortable thing, which is to get mad and react to everything. So we get a chance to see, well, this is how you're usually going to react. This is where your energy usually starts to show up. And it's helped people in some pretty interesting ways. We'll get into some of the things that people have said about it, but it's hard to explain really what it is because I still have that skeptical mind. On the spiritual side, your story is eloquently written in the stars. They say God has a plan, and you're a designed, created being. I like to think this is the instruction manual, the ingredients list to all of the amazing, awesome things that show up inside of your life.
And what I understand for you is you especially vibed with numerology also because you can change things. Like in astrology, you can't really change the planets, right? While here you can change your vibration. So it's more empowering in a way.
It really is, because when you see the story that you're running and you see what your name says about you, you're like, oh my God, I don't like that. And I know that part of me. It's enough to really open your eyes and give you that emotional peak experience and say, I want to accept change. I want to grow to a different place. And then what we do inside of a session, I call it shopping for a new car. This is the ride you've been driving. And I know you want to get to this level of success in your life. So let's find you an upgrade. Let's find you a word or a letter or a way of spelling your name so that when someone says it, it has that level of magic. And I say that lightly, but there's a reason why spells are also the same word as spelling. It's like a code. And we, even us using the English language, we can communicate with each other and really send it off to other people. So and then it begs the question, is this the type of person who says, oh, F this and screw that? Or is it a type of person who says, you know, we'll get the next one, or good job, or let's see what we learned and let's be positive. And your outlook on everything is everything. Yeah. So when we look at the way that a name breaks down to the finite level, the smallest detail, you can't change your birthday. You can change where you live. You can change who you hang around. And you could definitely change what you say when you open up your mouth and you put your hand out for a handshake. You're like, hey, I'm Bobby F. Parihar. It's nice to meet you. And that vibration should give you a boost or a kick somehow, because it actually speaks a code of cooperation, like coherence. And it actually does, as opposed to being, you know, distracted or static energy, or, you know, I feel like I'm missing something.
Okay. And it's the name that translates into number, and that's the calculation you make. And then it's that number that has a certain vibration. And that works both for when you say it and when it's written somewhere, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, definitely. And it's weird. So if anybody wants to get, like, if you're like me and you're like, I don't know about this stuff, this is really I want to find the science or want to find the math in this. I measure vowels on one side, consonants on the other, and then I put the two together again. So it's called Pythagorean numerology, if there's such a thing. It's a bunch of, there's like Indians have some, Asian people have their own little types of numerology. There's Chaldean numerology. And so what I do is I basically measure the components of vowels and consonants and then together. And then we start to get a picture around you: first name, middle name, last name, the name on your brand, the name that you were born with, all of these different landscapes of characters that you play. Some of them cooperate and some of them offer chaos. And some of the most chaotic numbers out there are also some of the most fun. They're the most ambitious. They're the most creative. They're like, who cares? I don't need to prove myself. And some of the more cooperative numbers are like, let's sit down and do this properly. Let's build together a little bit. Let's take things that one step at a time, and, you know, let's show something for our work. And then you see the other ones who are just scribbling over everything. I mean, is one worse than the other? No. But if you want to generate wealth, then you are looking at a specific one of these numbers. It says, because you could go and, you know, get a job. You can go out there real quick and just hand out a resume. Everyone's hiring, you know, but then there's that next level that says, well, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want that pillow money. I want to wake up to more. I want to do bigger things. I want to have impact. I can't do that at a lemonade stand or a hot dog cart. I got to do something bigger. And so there's like a vibration of like, let's go to the top. Let's go to the big level. And that's why, you know, I like to think of one of my friends, actually a few of them who you've interviewed. Rebecca, you've interviewed Tarek, you've interviewed Andrew. And, you know, the vibration, these guys were already, you know, crushing it in their own right. But as soon as they took that switch, it's like we got out of the car and into the spaceship, and they went to the next level. So it's really cool to see how that happens. But yeah, everything is in a name. It's just unbelievable.
It's super interesting also when you talk about the law of attraction and how it works. I'd say, well, like for me, when I think about the law of attraction, I'm like, there's one thing that's, it's undeniable, is that it's going to work on your mindset anyway. Then there's something which is more, I feel, at the level of belief that I believe in, but which is the universe also like giving you these things, right? Not just you changing your mindset. And when I came into the session I did with you, which we can talk about, but that was really great. For me, there was like, okay, I'm not that convinced about the vibration, but very open-minded. You know, I don't really know. So I'm like, yeah, it's true. Lately, I've opened my mind a lot to how things are vibration. So it makes sense to me, even though, and it's the same with crystals or with a lot of things. I'm very open to it, but I'm like, maybe there's a bit of bullshit around it too. You know, it can. I'm sure there are some areas where there is, but anyway, like for me, there is that part where I'm like, okay, for example, having a letter in my name, psychologically, just for me in the middle, it looks like authority a little bit. And I felt some of the work I've been doing recently was to kind of step up, like stepping up into the man, almost like the king, you know, and not being apologetic about it. And I felt that E, or like, let's say having a letter in the middle, helped that. So I needed that for my psychology to step up. But then there's that second layer of vibration. But my point is like, I came into it more for the psychological side, and that's how it would work for me. But what you say is on top of it, there is something I'm going to emit that I can't, at least I so far rationally understand, but that works.
I have to agree with you, because for me, when I put the letter on, I was already in a rough space, ready for change and wanting to become something more. And it's funny because we try to rationalize and conceptualize everything from within our awareness, and we forget to realize that there's so much more outside of our awareness than we even understand. I mean, you look at a flower and it's got this Fibonacci sequence in it, or you look at the fractal and it does the same thing. And the birds all flow in the same pattern without them talking to each other. And like species have been evolving for millions of years without, language. So there's so much more of a powerful layer other than what we can comprehend. And math is one of the most universal language. It's the most universal language in the universe. And, it really opened my eyes to recognize we have no real idea as to actually what this thing is really like, what's really going on. Like, we think that we're the pinnacle of intelligence or the pinnacle of creation. And it humbled me after thousands of people that I've read, I've done their charts with them, the tears, the expression, the lady who was trying to get pregnant for 10 years and she was like 43. And then 6 weeks later, she gets pregnant after spending like, what is it? Tens of thousands of dollars on, inside clinics and with doctors. And as soon as we changed her vibration, I looked at her name. I'm like, this thing says like no to the uterus. And we opened it up to a value that says, I want to be a mother and I want to be nourishing and nurturing to that. And next thing you know, she gets pregnant. So is there a placebo? I hope there is, but I also understand that, you hear certain people talk and it can turn you off and you're going to be like, their language is negative or their disposition is something I don't agree with. And I'm just going to be polite, or I'm just going to remove myself, and we operate at that point. We're not thinking about numerology. We're not thinking about a single letter, but at the same time, they look at atoms are 99.9999 empty space. And yet I'm like, well, then what is all this dense, like physical? If that's true, shouldn't I be able to pass through myself in a very like easy way? Shouldn't we all just be cloud? But then it makes us realize that there's so much more that we can't even conceptualize. And within that fraction of a percent, all of our actual like visible light and visible data, this cosmic gamma and X-rays and radio waves happening. Even right now, I'm a wireless technology that's communicating across the world over a camera, who's doing the same thing with you. And we're literally broadcasting another message altogether. It's just so much to put your head around, to think that I like to think that there is a psychological aspect to this, but then there's this huge question mark. And even my clients ask me, like, where does this come from? And they ask me these questions and I'm like, you know what? I've got questions for God. So I'll put them on the list. And when I meet him one day, I'm going to ask, because I'm curious, are we just a program? Like, are we just some walking computer algorithm? Because I mean, when I look at a chart, that's what it looks like. That's what it feels like. We're just numbers, like a dice rolled on the game playing field of life. And it's just it becomes very spiritual and super esoteric, the conversation. But in order to answer yours, I like to think that there is this level of belief that says, I want this now. I'm ready for it now. And knowing that I can see myself in an objective reality, that to think my birthday and my name exists, it gives me a sense of power that says, I want to step above it, and I'm ready to step above it now.
And I have a question, which is something I ponder for myself, to rebound on that. I got a lot from doing a lot of work in personal growth, but that's a bit the personal growth or sometimes spirituality paradox. It's like you try to improve yourself, but at the same time, you're already perfect in a way and everything's within you. Do you feel sometimes people come to you trying to get fixed in a way and looking for things that are going to fix them? Because for me, at the same time, I believe there's so much we can't comprehend, and I'm super open-minded, and that's why I do, for example, a session with you. But at the same time, I don't want to start making excuses and being like, oh, that must be because my name has a lower vibration, when actually I just don't put in the work, right? So
Yeah.
how do you differentiate between looking for the right vibration and the right environment around you, and at the same time not taking responsibility at the same time?
Hey, it's tough because I completely agree with you, and you know again one of those challenging conversations because I could buy the most beautiful white pair of shoes. I got my
Mm-hmm.
brand new white Nikes, but I don't know if I'm going to step in a puddle. I don't know if someone's going to step on my foot.
Mm.
I don't know if someone's going to stain me from the outside. Like there's so much more happening outside of me. I can prepare for the most powerful day and picnic,
Mm.
but I can't, like predict what's going to happen outside of me. That sounds like the lyrics from the Outcast song, right? You can plan a pretty picnic, but you can't predict the weather. And so there's just two components that are happening. And for me, I wanted so bad to get fixed. I wanted so bad to not be in a depression and not be outside of myself and not be outside of a job or a family. I wanted it so bad. I was willing to do whatever. And I was already learning personal development, growing. So I was priming my conversation for this level of vibration upgrade. But I also like to think if we were perfect, I mean, and I think we are. So I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to argue that we're not. But if we were completely perfect in every single way and we were perfect just the way that we were, then why would we pursue change? Why would we pursue growth? Why would we pursue impact? And it also brings me to think the perfection is in the imperfection. We are already supposed to be doing that. It's part of our fate. And if you're listening to this, you are fated to hear this conversation. This was part of your soul's journey to be super intrigued by this, being like, oh, this is really weird. Why am I getting this feeling that I want to go deeper? It's because there's a journey, a soul contract, if you will. There's someone out there who's ready to open a door. And I had the opportunity to join businesses before. It never worked. Even my clients had opportunity to be in businesses before. It didn't work until they got involved in our community. But to think that, I played the catalyst. I got a chance to be the finish line for someone and entering their own conversation of wealth and openness to themselves. It's so much more than just making money, creating wealth for others and being wealthy and having a wealth consciousness. It's one of the most beautiful things ever. So for me, numerology is a part of the puzzle, but it's been the biggest, most important piece of it so far is to take this really weird fog of mysticism and law of attraction on a spiritual level and start assigning a calculated value to it and dial it the way you're dialing a frequency on a radio dial. If it's 2 points off, you're going to get static. But if it's 2 points on, you start dancing, you feel the vibe, it comes in clear because it's broadcasting at a specific frequency. And that's basically where I start to think that this stuff is real. But then it makes me think that we're not, and we're actually going backwards through time. We're in some sort of a computer program, and that we don't. Life isn't what we think it is. It's something completely different.
Yeah. And I'm asking this because I'm in Bali, and if you it's like a theme park for spirituality. So you can easily spend your whole days doing things around energy work and be less in that physical realm. So I feel for me, how I choose is also just, am I just attracted to it? Do I vibe with it? And for you, I think both with your amazing energy and the amazing recommendations I got from the people, that's what made me attracted to open my mind on this and get started for sure. But it reminds me, it's a bit like, I have a question for you on if you feel like it's more you're channeling things and the information is there in the numbers, which I feel is your answer, versus sometimes what I feel, which is a good athlete for intuition. But in your case, it wouldn't work that much because you really didn't know me at all and you were so on point. Because that's what I was thinking, for example, when a friend of mine is reading tarot cards, I'm like, what I think is like, okay, maybe there's truth in the tarot card, or maybe she has just a great creativity and intuition, and those tarot cards are the permission for her to go for it. Because if she goes straight to me and goes like, oh, you might get sick in 2 years, I'd be like, fuck you. Why do you tell me that? I feel like you're going to be miserable. Like, why? Well, if you say it's the card, then you can be more like you can do it without getting the ego of the other person in the way. And so I was like, I get there's this, but I guess there's more than this too, because people who read cards, they're not just like, okay, it's an outlet for my intuition. They're like, there's something in the cards. So I guess for you it's the same. You feel it's in the number, or do you feel it's an access to your intuition too?
It's absolutely, this is tough because I'm still in the mind of the analytical and the skeptical person who's watching this. So if that's you, just take a deep breath. Maybe you want to go to the bathroom or get a glass of water for this. But I'll tell you, now we go to the spiritual side of this. My numbers are showing me values of spiritual communication. Like I have this long selfie stick with a mirror that I can actually see behind your vibration. And I know you have it too. I'm looking at your chart right now, just so you know. You're born with this value of spiritual truth seeker. Like there's this really divine level of like, I can call bullshit a mile away and I know it. And then on the other side, we have this ambition for business and an ambition for speaking up for the underdog and helping the person who doesn't have a voice and becoming a wealth voice for that. So I know that there's like, for me, and I like to think that tarot, astrology, EFT, or psychic timeline, hypnotherapy, numerology, it's an instrument in the band, and I get a chance to be the musician. So I've got a tarot card deck. I've done stuff like that. I've got a astrology report. I love getting into that because I also was born with the same vibration as you were, that says I wanted to seek that spiritual truth, and we're like grasping, because in today's day and age, people roll their eyes at it and they're just like, get a job or get back to the real world. But then there's a few version of us that are like, no, we have to connect these two. There's a connection here we're making. And this is where we're having this conversation to think numbers meets, spirituality. And I like to think of it as entirely different than any other modality I've ever seen, from psychics to mediums to tarot to anything, because of the fact that it's got a finite value. So I look at it from the chart, but then I start to interpret it from my spiritual understanding. And I believe that the two create a hybrid, because otherwise I probably would just look like a weird looking mystic. But in this case, no, I work with entrepreneurs. I help parents. I talk to people. I talk to children who are going through stuff. I actually help people find out about themselves, and the whites in their eyes are just looking at this information like, how do you know this? And I'm like, look, I don't. This is an instrument, and I'm just reading the numbers. If you want to know, I have to say that we don't know anything, and that we're just picking up the scraps and the pieces. So there really is that permission within the and it's funny you use that word, because when I'm working with clients one-on-one, we start off with a sacred asking of a permission so that we can actually dive into this. And it reminded me of the way that you and I started our conversation. For anyone who knows this, before we start recording, you're like, let's give permission to this space. Let's get into a meditative understanding of what value we're going to give to people. And I'm like, oh man, Alex, you're so good, dude. Like you were so, and then as well, when I read what you were up to with, the value that you're fighting for and the thing that you're giving to this planet, I absolutely admire you, my good man. You're going to do some pretty powerful stuff on this planet, as if you don't already know that, but to see it inside of your chart, it was it's just a wonderful feeling to think we're on this path together. You know what I mean?
Thanks, bro. And yeah, that's part of the work we did together. I went pretty all in on the choice of names I had.
You did. Yeah, you went to the very top.
Yeah.
You went to the very, very top. There's values in there. Like as they say, we go car shopping. So you could pick like a really fast bike or a really super luxury car or like a family van. But then Alex goes and picks a spaceship name. He's like, I've got to colonize an entire vibration. We're going to take this to the next generation. I'm like, wow. And to think you actually had that number. I'm not sure if you remember or not, but Alex E. Lambert, the one that you're running, is synonymous with the one that you were born with. So it's accessing a power that you authentically have that, in my opinion, has been suffocated because of how fun you are and how, caring and loving and ambitious you are on one level. The giant version of you's been sitting there like a dragon just waiting. And now Alex E. Lambert comes in. There's no hiding that anymore. people are going to feel this and see this. And there's that numerological level of authority that really starts to kick in. It's a wonderful feeling, man. But you're not coming back down. You're going somewhere very, very powerful with your life.
Yeah, I think so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm really interested in. So you're helping all these entrepreneurs and people. Like, what's the impact you want to have in the world?
Well, basically, it's the way that I see this is that we're modern day wizards. We're modern day alchemists and philosophers here. And the energy, the way that we create it, it shows up in wealth. Wealth isn't even dollar or gold standard anymore. It's like electricity inside of a computer somewhere. So it's a perception of wealth and it's a perception of value that we give to the planet. So I believe that the time is ready in the evolution of consciousness that we're no longer going to listen to the talking heads on the TV, and we're no longer going to be, tied in by our governments or world religions, and these systems are fast collapsing because social media. Look at this: you got your own podcast, you have your own episodes, you got your own platform that says, "I'm going to say what I want to say. I'm not just going to listen to what someone else tells me." And so I figured my impact to the world is to help people get to a better place in their life. And when they do, they start to look at how do we affect a lot of people? Because I thought to myself, how am I supposed to affect millions of people? And I thought, oh, I know, I'll affect thousands who affect thousands. And then that would work. So if I were to help enough people, if I were to unlock the next generation of thought leaders and people, evoking that power within them, that I would be blessed to be able to do so. And that's why I was so admiring of the stance that you take for humanity inside of what you're doing with Unlocked. And that feeling here is like, oh yes, this is exactly what I was looking for. This is exactly the type of person I want to partner up with and collaborate with, because I'm looking for that energy. And I put it out there in the universe that this is what I'm doing. I'm helping people unlock from, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough energy, I'm feeling distracted or beat down from life. And the cage these days, guys, it's super impressive. It's cable and Netflix and internet, and you can get anything you want. You can order a car, you can order food, everything gets sent to you. And they want to make us so comfortable being this like new age slave. And we don't even recognize that we're like handcuffed. And what I'm doing is secretly unlocking the handcuffs for people so that they can help do the same for others and teach people how to fish instead of throwing them a fish every day, kind of thing. That's the old paradigm that's quickly failing, right?
Yeah. Talking about fish, when you talked about you trying to get a job, it reminds me of that quote from Einstein about if you want to teach a fish to climb a tree, it will think it succeeds the whole life. And that's a bit what we do in general with people, and what happened to you, right?
Yeah, I tried climbing a tree, and I realized I should be swimming.
And yeah, I really like also the vision you have of impact is the same. I realize that's what I tell people who think they're not significant. I mean, in a way, with perspective, like body and mind and how we're incarnated. Yeah, it's quite insignificant compared to how vast the universe is and these things. But at the same time, you're the center of a network, right? So what I tell people is like, for me, for example, when I learned, let's say, meditation, maybe it took me a year to be really, really convinced. And then I was like teaching people, and maybe the second year I shared, I did an online program and got about 60, 70 people starting meditation. But let's say after 2 years, I just get 10 people to meditate, right? If these 10 people get 10 people to meditate in the next 2 years, etc., that's pretty exponential. So in a matter of, it's not, of course, there's like common friends and stuff, but like if you do the math this way, in a matter of like 12 years, you can impact more than 1 million people,
Absolutely.
So, and that looks very achievable.
So
you matter.
Yeah, absolutely. You really do. And there's a perfect example about this. Before the internet, when a song came out, you'd have to go to a store and buy a CD for $18 and listen to the song. And now, it's like you can stream just the song. You don't have to go there and do that. You can just buy the small piece. You can actually just go and stream it. You know, you can download it from other people, and it's a peer-to-peer network that unleashed a lightning strike of energy that just went so fast that humanity is breaking as we try to keep up with it. Like, it's literally falling apart, and we need people like yourself, man, who are doing what you're doing, because you're like, yo, I got the fire, I got the torch, I'm leading this champion movement. And really, you are born in May with the fighter life path, you know, and then on the side of your names says huge heart. So not only you have a big heart, but you also got a big sword. And those are the types of people that are like, we need you, and we're blessed to have you, man. Like, in this evolution of consciousness, you're doing a great thing. And I wanted to take a few minutes to just express my gratitude for you, especially because you're like, oh dude, let's do this episode. And I'm like, man, what you're doing is going to change the world. It's going to change a lot of people in it. And as I say, man, super grateful for the work that you do.
Thank you so much. And I'll happily receive that, because that's one of the things that really matter to me. I think I trust people to do what's to elevate consciousness in a way, and that then people know, you know, how they should behave for other people, animals, the planet, and the things. And of course, I want to acknowledge what you're doing, because I see the impact you've had on me and so many other leaders. I don't know if it's something you consciously do, but I feel like you work a lot with other leaders, because especially in that, if you want to have a lot of influence in a way, and you think your impact is going to be great, if you impact people who are also leaders, then you know it's going to be a huge impact.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's why I do it.
Nice. How can people follow you or get more in touch with you?
Well, my name is everywhere, Bobby F. Parihar. I'm usually hanging around on Facebook. I've got lots of content on YouTube if you guys check me out. And also my site, www.createloveandwealth.xyz. So it's www.createloveandwealth.xyz. And you just see a catalog of the things that people are saying, my reviews and testimonials, videos about what I do, and an opportunity to work with me if you want. I'm also on App Store in case you guys want to play around a little bit and start leveling your name out. You can download my app. It's Bobby F. Parihar Numerology. So you can get a chance to see, does this name work? And you know, is it a value of wealth, or does it break down in communication? But if you want to have a personal conversation, the best way to get a hold of me is through Facebook. This is where I do my go lives, and all my stuff there is usually where I hang out.
Okay. Thank you so much, Bobby. I think it was super valuable, and I love your work. So much love. I'll give you a digital hug.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you so much, dude. And won't be the last time we're going to be talking for sure. But thanks so much for sharing the space and for letting me do this with you today.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone who listened.